You know, a lot of people ask how the fall of Constantinople affects my legacy. And it's a good question. You guys are always comparing eras, and I think everyone would have loved to see me play against that 1453 Istanbul's team, but obviously I never got that opportunity because the Ottoman Empire's siege was too powerful. But you already know I would have claimed the city as LeBron-Stantinople.
So, a lot of you may be wondering,
am I using a LeBron audio clip?
Well, like he said,
LeBron-Stantinople.
Oh my God!
Hey, NordVPN.
I'm here.
Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. More details at the end.
Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. Arms of a Goddess. All right, let's see what we got
Carrie
here, Llama.
wanted nothing to do with the daily hustle and bustle of working in the city. Having to commute early in the morning for a job that was only a half hour away thanks to the absurd amount of traffic she had to fight through. To make matters worse, she was undeniably beautiful, with her shining blue eyes and vibrant red hair that seemed to ignite whenever it went under direct light.
Jeez.
In the city, that made her a high-priority target for catcalling and being followed around by less than well-intentioned fellows.
Okay.
Eventually, she could no longer deal with these issues, and so decided to quit her job and do what she loved to do the most, write. Thankfully, she had a sizable amount of money saved up and a good chunk of savings that allowed her to live comfortably for at least a year.
All right, a year.
In other words, she had 1 year to make it big as a writer, or she was screwed. Not wanting to live in the city anymore, she also moved out into the woods, opting to purchase a
that's even worse.
Relatively small yet cozy cabin. Her family was understandably upset by this turn of events, but she did not mind their frustrations. What was done, as she told them. The first few weeks out there was a great success for her, at least in her mind. She wrote thousands of words every day for short stories and even a big novel she had planned. In between her writing binges, she would take walks around her property, soaking in the sweet and natural scents that the outside world had to offer.
What is that?
Taking inspiration from the earth around her and the occasional occurrence of a small forest critter that brought her joy. One day, however, when she was on one of her walks and a few miles away from her cabin, she encountered something odd. Beneath one of the pine trails she often frequented was a rather arcane-looking skull that brought her a great deal of concern and confusion. She knelt down to inspect it and cocked an eyebrow as she looked it over. By all measurements, it looked like a normal skull of a deer, complete with antlers. There were two odd additions to the skull, however.
What was that?
The first was that there were two small horns that protruded just above where the forehead would be. And the second was that just below where its eye sockets were another set of eyes that were about the size of a human's. Hoping that it was just some cruel trick.
Look. What if your name is Lucy?
You better stop!
Some artistic creation and some abomination, she decided to pick it up and find out for herself. Upon touching the skull, she instantly felt a deep sensation of dread surge throughout her body, making her feel sick. Carrie backed away from it in a hurry and eyed it frightfully as she stumbled to her feet and jogged all the way back to her cabin. All the while trying to ignore the feeling of being watched as she did so. As soon as she arrived home, she slammed the door behind her and locked it. She then closed her blinds and peeked outside through them to try and see if there was actually someone there, or if her mind was just playing tricks on her. When nothing happened after a few minutes, she slumped down onto her couch and sighed in relief, chalking the situation up to just being isolated from others for an extended period of time. That night, as she was writing, she was interrupted by the loud grunting of a deer. She chuckled, thinking it was just some buck making its way through the area. Her hands froze in fear when a cacophony of grunts piped up one after another. Quickly, she turned off all the lights inside, grabbed a knife from the kitchen.
Okay, I don't want to pause too much, but usually I would say that this is good, but you're by yourself, and there are multiple enemies outside.
I don't know if she's a fast runner.
And went to the window praying to God that there was just a herd of deer outside.
It's not no deer.
To her complete and utter dismay, she was wrong.
What is it?
Standing in front of her
Oh.
cabin about 10 yards away stood
Nah,
three
man.
individuals wearing long black cloaks.
She's
Adorning
oh
their
my
heads
gosh.
were deer skulls, the same type of deer skull that she had encountered earlier that day.
Run.
One by one, they made the same grunting sounds from before.
Oh,
Only this time they
See
began
up there.
walking towards the cabin.
call the cops.
Understandably freaked out, she grabbed her phone and
She's
attempted to
cooked.
call the police. Tears filled her eyes as she saw "no service" written across the top of her phone. In frustration, she threw it on the ground and returned to the window to see that they were nearly at her door now, their grunts louder than ever. She screamed at them to go
No,
away, that she
don't
was armed, and to
talk.
just leave her alone.
So-
After her panic-filled rant, she backed away from the window,
Now they know you're
shakily
here.
holding the knife in her hands. Seconds later, she turned into a sobbing mess as the individuals antagonizing her began
my
knocking
gosh.
on her door.
Bro.
Please, just go away!
She screamed.
Go
The knocking
hide.
became louder and more insistent as time went by, until just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, it stopped.
Oh, I thought they were about to break in.
She
And
asked
she keeps
aloud,
talking.
surprised that the threat decided to move along. She untensed her body and leaned up against the wall to compose herself. Without warning, a loud metallic clanging sound was heard,
Uh-oh.
and she saw her doorknob
Oh
stumble
my
out of the door
gosh.
and onto the wooden floor below.
Yo.
Slowly, her door creaked open,
Uh-oh.
and in stepped the tallest of the three masked individuals. Even with his face obscured, she could see how distorted and disfigured his
gosh.
features were beneath the skull.
Bro,
Stop! Please leave!
stab him.
Don't make me use this!
Carrie shouted as she raised the
Carrie?
knife back up and aimed it towards him. He did nothing but stand silently and outstretched his arms as though he were a saint posing for a painting.
Oh my gosh.
In defiance, Carrie screamed and charged
There we
toward
go.
the man, knife
Get him.
poised to pierce his chest.
Oh my gosh.
Quicker than the wind, she swatted her hand to the side and followed up with a power punch to her gut, winding her in the process.
Oh
She
my
collapsed
gosh.
limply into his arms, heaving and gasping for air. Chair.
Bro.
She heard him command the other two who rushed into the cabin. Taking a chair from her dining table, they set it in the middle of the room, and Carrie was gingerly seated in it.
Carrie, you're dead.
Defenseless and weak, she whispered for them to take whatever they wanted, but to just leave her alone as they proceeded to strap her down
Yeah,
with
they
twine.
want you, bro.
The goddess despises material goods. Divinity has no such need for such petty items.
Oh my gosh.
What she seeks is beauty and the ability to create beauty. You're a writer, yes? Surely you know what I mean.
How do you know I'm a writer?
They're stalking you.
Because the goddess led you to us, my dear.
I don't understand.
Carrie muttered as she looked between the three men. Sculptures, paintings, pottery, buildings, books, shrines, all created with the arms of talented individuals.
Alright.
You should feel blessed.
Yeah,
Carrie
sure, man.
squinted her eyes at him, completely bewildered at the situation.
Why are you here?
She says you have lovely arms, Carrie.
Oh no, please no.
Excuse me?
Please no.
Tears returned to her eyes as her
Please no.
stomach sank. So much potential
Please
not
no.
yet used. This is what she desires, and you have exactly
Bro,
that.
don't cut off her arms.
He walked behind Carrie and placed his hands on her shoulders, and with
Oh my
bony
gosh.
fingers ran them up and down her arms. Carrie shuddered and swallowed hard.
You don't have to do this.
Carrie whimpered. I'm sorry, child. I weep for you. Truly, I do. His grip tightened around her shoulders,
gosh.
his fingernails digging into her skin and drawing
Bro.
blood. Carrie screamed in pain. But just think, you're going to be part of something so undeniably beautiful that this pain will become something to rejoice about. Upon realizing what was going to happen to her, Carrie's eyes widened and she thrashed around,
There we
begging
go.
and pleading to be let go. But all of those pleas fell upon the ears
Come on.
of men deaf to her plight. Detective Holt walked under the yellow tape that surrounded the
late.
cabin of Carrie Wilkins
Yo.
and went straight inside. In the center of the room sat the woman in question. He shook his head and did his best not to vomit at what he saw.
No
A ring
way.
of leaves surrounded the chair
Oh my
that Carrie
gosh.
sat in, and a crown of twigs and
Carrie.
flowers adorned her bloodied head. Her mouth was agape, with a few
Oh.
berries resting upon her tongue. Worst of all, her
Oh.
arms had been surgically removed, and
My
pools
goodness.
of blood bathed the leaves below from her still leaking arms. Holt exited the cabin, loosened the tie to his suit in frustration, and scratched his rugged graying beard. As he contemplated where to go from that disturbing sight, he was approached by an officer.
Detective Holt, as I'm sure you're aware, the victim was found early this morning due to her parents making a surprise visit and found her in that state.
Do you have any news for me, or are you just repeating to me verbally the
Oh my
messed up
gosh.
I just saw? The young woman cleared her throat and apologized.
This was found on the table next to the victim.
She handed Holt a folded piece of paper that had a crudely drawn skull and blood on it. It read as follows. The time for the goddess to awaken has come. With her arms she crafts. But what use are arms without eyes,
No.
which to see her own creations?
No, bro. Oh my gosh.
Cultists. Holt grunted as he peered back inside at the mutilated woman.
What do we do, sir?
Drink. It's gonna be a long day.
Okay, I know I said I only had time for one, but come on, I had to watch another one. This one's called A Close Call.
I had just reluctantly returned home from an extended vacation trip to Japan. After experiencing delicious food beyond compare, a beautiful country,
Yeah.
and spending time with amazing people.
Man, I need
Needless
to go
to
to
say, I
Japan.
was a bit depressed about coming home. On my first day back home, I went straight to my bedroom and passed out before doing anything else.
Jeez.
Rather, I didn't have the energy to do anything else. It was probably for that reason that I failed to notice subtle hints that my home was not as lonely without me as I
Uh-oh.
believed. Later, I awoke in the middle of the night to the sound of scuttling noises and the floorboards creaking. Understandably confused, I got out of bed and made my way into the hallway that was connected to both the living room and kitchen. Cautiously, I crept my way through the darkness, groping the wall next to me for balance in my tired state as I trudged forward. I, however, made the fatal mistake of stepping onto one of the
Oh,
loudest
yikes.
boards in the hallway,
Oh,
alerting
yikes.
whoever or whatever was lurking in the shadows of the next room.
Yo, get a weapon. Oh
I
my gosh, what is
paused,
that?
as did the entity in the next room, before a whoosh of air was
Ooh.
heard as they retreated into whatever crevice they had come out of. Taking a nervous gulp of air, I
Bro,
walked into the
get a
living
weapon.
room and turned on the nearby lamp that dimly lit up the room. Looking around, I spotted not a soul, but rather some of my furniture was disturbed. What's
Bro, why
more,
does he
a
speak
couple
like
of my
this?
kitchen cabinets were slightly ajar.
A jar.
Bewildered, but with my guard up, I went over and closed them all before readjusting my furniture, by which point I had relaxed. I chalked up the odd noises and movements to my jet-lagged brain and shrugged, deciding to just head back to bed. I wish the story ended there, but I was not so lucky.
Oh.
Before entering the hallway to my room, I saw that the large metal covering to the air vent above the couch
Bro,
was
too many
missing.
shadows.
Peering up at it, I mumbled, "What the?" before a crooked face filled with abject disdain
No.
for my existence popped
No.
into view. Startled, I fell to the ground and began crawling away
Oh my
as
gosh.
I heard the man
What's
begin
he up?
screeching incoherently as he dropped down onto the couch.
All right, let's go.
I watched in horror as his joints cracked beneath his raggedy hoodie and heavily stained jeans. He
you have
stared
to kill
at
him.
me, silent now, before brandishing a knife out of his back
Oh,
pocket
see, I
and
thought you was gonna
pointed
get a
it
weapon.
towards me.
Bro, let's go.
My house now! Mine!
Oh my gosh.
Mine! You left it! It's mine!
All right, man.
he shouted with a slurred voice as he charged towards me. I hurriedly crawled towards my room and slammed the door behind me and locked it as he started jabbing his blade into the door, yelling at me to die.
Wow.
Shakily, I called the police and sobbed as I told them what was happening. Thankfully, I was told a patrol car was nearby my neighborhood and they would be at my house in minutes.
Okay.
I stayed on the phone and picked up a baseball bat just in case that deranged cretin broke down my door. A few horrendous minutes later, the police arrived, and after a quick but violent struggle, they managed to subdue the intruder. After locking him in the back seat of the patrol car, the cops investigated my house and found that the man apparently had been living there while I was gone.
Yeah, I figured.
But not just that. Apparently, he'd been staying at my house without me noticing for a few months.
Oh.
According to the police, they found paper stuffed under the couch that was filled with nothing but incoherent ramblings about how he planned to kill me one day
Oh my
when the time
gosh.
was right. With the dates next to
Oh.
each entry predating my trip to Japan by an uncomfortable amount of time. Frankly, I'm happy to be alive and relieved that the situation was resolved so quickly. But still, I make sure to triple check the locks in my home after that little incident.